Hello again, you sick, twisted weather freaks, and welcome to another fun-filled, action-packed, and intellectually stimulating edition of This Week in Weather. I'm your host and meteorologist DT from Weather Risk, the commander of chaos, Colonel Confusion, your captain of catastrophe. We have two tropical depressions to talk about, maybe even a third down the road, and then all sorts of possible landfalls. So, busy edition of This Week in Weather. Let's get right to it and see what we got to look at here. A lot of information to go over. Okay, here's a picture of my smiling face from Richmond, Virginia. My emails, you can reach me that way. There's my Twitter page. And there I am from a very nice day back in August several years ago. Anyway, let's get right to maps here. This is the 5 p.m. Hurricane Center forecast for the two systems for 13 and 14. Also, there's a little system coming off Africa. We'll get to that at the end of the presentation. Now, what's happening here is we don't know which one's going to become Laura, which one's going to become, Marco over the next 24 to 48 hours. And the general concern is, 13, what's it going to do? And then 14, what's it going to do? Obviously, 14 is more of a Gulf of Mexico hurricane. Probably 13 is going to do something like that. But again, and the other problem is how close it comes to the big islands. Both of these are going to have significant interactions with land masses, which is going to restrict the ability to intensify for a while. So this is the official forecast from the Hurricane Center as of this afternoon on this Thursday, August 20th. This is for Tropical Depression 13. You can see it goes right north of the islands and then to Florida, with some intensification once it clears the far eastern tip of Cuba. It goes to the Bahamas, some intensification there. I will get to that also. One of the short-range, high-resolution models, the HWRF, goes bonkers with the system, makes it a Category 3 or 4 hurricane to Miami. That's complete crap. The HWRF is a horrible hurricane model. It should be discontinued. It's absolute crap. It's never gotten anything right at any time ever. It gets the tracks wrong, it gets the intensity wrong. It's just a piece of garbage, and I wish they would discontinue it. The weather weenies love it because it's a big, hurricane sex fantasy, but it's complete nonsense. It's a horrible, horrible model. This is the one from Tropical Depression 14, and you can see it's going to pass fairly close to Honduras and northeast coast of Nicaragua. That means it's got to make a bigger landfall over the Yucatan. So earlier there was some concern that the system might do this. If you look at the early hurricane plot, you'll see it might do this. But with the shift to the west and south, it's going to hit the Yucatan and much bigger here, which means a lot more weakening here, which means less chance for intensification there. So that shift to the west is significant. Now there are instances of two hurricanes being in the Gulf of Mexico. This is from old hurricane map from September 1933. We had two moderate hurricanes in the Gulf of Mexico here, very similar to what we're looking at now. So that's kind of interesting. I don't know if that's necessarily analog, but 1933 was a very, very active hurricane season, by the way, in case you were wondering. All right, this is what the current system looks like here. This is number 14. This is the one out in the Atlantic. This is the one here, sorry, in the Caribbean. And you can see now, it looks pretty good in the infrared picture, but it's really moving pretty fast. It's got a nice big cloud mass associated, a lot of cyclonic flow here. And you can see the satellite picture also looks pretty good. So it look like it's going to intensify here and probably become a tropical storm, perhaps before it reaches the Yucatan. So we'll see if that actually happens. But this system is also moving at a pretty good clip. A lot of these systems are moving at a pretty fast, pace here, and that's a bit of a problem. If they could slow down a little more, you get more intensification. So that's a problem. Now this is in the 13 here. This is the one out there that's going to pass north of Puerto Rico. This is the latest visible satellite picture. It's a pretty good-looking system. Not great on the western side of it, and the infrared also looks okay. Doesn't look great. It looked a lot better yesterday, quite frankly. So we'll, it also has the possibility of some intensification, but this one is moving pretty fast. Also, a lot like that storm, but the Isaias storm a couple of weeks ago, the one that ended up hitting going up the East Coast. This thing is moving really fast as well. Not quite that fast, but definitely faster than 15 miles an hour. And that can present a problem when you're trying to get the low-level center underneath the thunderstorms. So, that can restrict intensification. Now, with regard to what's going to happen here, there's not actually a lot of variability. The models are in very, very good agreement here. So this is the current. This is going to be the jet stream map here from the European at 72 hours. This is Sunday, and we can see the big dome. Here's our heat dome. There's our Bermuda High, and then outside of that, this is the edge of the ridge right here. See that? So here comes the system number 14 coming up this way through the Yucatan, and there's a gap in here. So it's going to end up going in this direction, and then eventually it's going to bend around the western flank of the Bermuda High, which you can see is now pushed inland to southeast Virginia, almost to Atlanta, Georgia, and to the Florida Panhandle. So it's going to end up going around it this way in that sort of direction. So the models are in very good agreement about that. This here is now the GFS and the European 96 hours out, and as you can see, the models, there's no difference. I mean, look at the shape of the heat dome here, the dark red, almost identical on both of these models. There's the GFS, there's the European, okay, and this is number 14 right in here. So it's going to be forced to go into Texas around the gap here. Now, if the ridges here connect, then 14 is going to be forced to stay down here in Texas and not going to come up to the Midwest with rain. But that's something to worry about a little later. Not all the models agree about that. So, but that's clearly, we can see the Bermuda High is very strong here. And that also means that the Tropical Depression 13 will not get a chance to go out to sea. It's going to be forced underneath it. And you can see on the European model, there is a little disturbance right here. That is probably number 14. And it's going to be forced to go around this way. Same thing on the GFS, doing that sort of thing. Now, it may do more like that. Yeah, it's probably going to go more in that direction. We'll see that in just a minute. That's what most of the models are in fact showing. And this is now 120 hours, and you can see the GFS has both systems here. Let's look at the upper left. There's 14 and there's 13, or again, this might be a tropical storm at this point in landfall, even a hurricane along the Texas or Louisiana Gulf Coast. But those are the two systems. And with the ridge very strong here, this one is going to force to stay to the south. But here there's a weakness, and that's going to allow the system 14 to come around. Now the European is a little slower here. It's got the system further to the east, and this is 14 here, so you can see a bit more of a gap here. But both models are pretty much in good agreement. Now this is 144 hours out, day 6. Here's the European. Okay, number 14 is sitting, tropical depression 13 is sitting there. The 14 system, which again probably a storm or hurricane, has moved into Texas. Notice the weakness here, right here. So that's going to allow the system to make a wider turn and make some sort of turn into the southeastern states and come up the coast well inland as a rainstorm. And we can see this on the different hurricane models. This is the GFS Ensemble here at midday. You can see both systems moving towards the Gulf into Florida. And now, you know, the one in the Western Caribbean stays in Texas. It stays down here. It doesn't get a chance to come up. And this one, of course, does. And that shows up on the European. Now, the European doesn't do much with the southern system at all. That's probably going to change in tonight's run. But the European's doing the same sort of thing, taking it into 13, taking it up into Florida or the Florida Keys, and then into the eastern Gulf of Mexico. Let's look at the operational GFS. Here we go. This is 30 hours out. We can see both systems here. This is 13, and this here is 14. It actually has it over Honduras and Nicaragua a little bit. That would allow for a lot of weakening if that were to happen. And then this here is 60 hours now. We can see the system approaching the northern Yucatan very nicely right here. The Yucatan just clipping it. And then this is the Tropical Depression 13, maybe a tropical storm at this point. And then we can see further down the road, this is now for 196 hours out, excuse me. And we have the GFS at 120. And again, both systems go into the Gulf of Mexico. So very possible. Neither one of them are super strong at this point, but they're both tropical storms probably at this point, and they both hit the Gulf Coast states with rain and wind. Not a huge deal, not very strong. The European model does not make a big deal, however, out of 98L. It continues, the operational European here continues to make this not a big system. They haven't put most of its eggs in that one. So we'll see if that happens. Now, the ensembles are more bullish with the system here. This is the European Ensemble out to 120 hours out with Tropical Depression 13. Notice it goes north of Puerto Rico, north of Haiti, Dominican Republic, and north of Cuba, right into the Florida Straits. This would be and then takes a wider turn up here. So that would allow for some intensification here quite a bit if it actually were to do that. And it stays north of the islands. That would really help it quite a bit. This is the long-term track, And you can see what it does. It swings it around, very sharp around the Bermuda High. Again, right around here, you can see it going around the ridge and then getting pulled north. So I think that's a very reasonable solution. The GFS agrees with it on Tropical Depression 13. Through the Florida Straits, notice it stays north of Hispaniola and Cuba into the eastern Gulf of Mexico, then up into Alabama, and then makes a turn into the southeastern states as a big rainstorm. If we look at the GFS Ensemble individually, we can see that it does have much better with both systems. We can see that this is number 13 here, and this is 14. And that's valid here for Saturday. And then this is for Sunday night. Both systems, one's in the Gulf of Mexico, the other one's in the Bahamas. And then here we have a Tuesday. And again, a big cluster of activity in both areas. Right in here, and the other one, 13 and 14. 13 and 14, right there. Again, very reasonable solution. I think that's probably correct. And neither one of them is particularly strong. And finally, yeah. And then next slide here. Now, this is the European Ensemble. It kind of agrees with that. The European Ensemble has more of that situation here. There's 13 very nicely. Here's 14 spread out in a long, elongated area. So, again, the Ensemble is much more aggressive with 13 than the operational one. Interestingly enough, this here is a big wave that just came off of Africa today, and that has some potential here. Both the GFS and the European are showing that to be a very nice system. This here is the GFS Ensemble, and this is for August 27th. We can see that it does have a very nice system right there. That is the new wave that moved off Africa. And we can see what that looks like on a satellite picture. That's a pretty, let me clear this out. Look at that. That's a nice looking wave that's come off Africa. That's really a really potent system here. I want to highlight, you can see which one I'm talking about, this one right here. So, that would be the I guess the end storm if that would develop. And just briefly, finally, before I close here, this here is HWRF. This is the Tropical Depression 13. This is to be the one passing north in Puerto Rico. You can see it has it as a Category 3-4 hurricane in Miami. This is bullshit. It's not going to happen. It's a horrible model, like I said. I wish I discontinued it. But it's out there, and people look at it and they get all excited over it, and it becomes a weather weenie fantasy. So I've never seen the HWRF get anything right. I mean, I've never, ever. It's awful. Anyway, that's the presentation here. It's fairly a short one here. Not much else to talk about. The main issue and the main forecast is definitely the position of the Bermuda ridges here, Bermuda highs, and you can see how they're going to affect these systems. They're definitely going to the Gulf of Mexico. They're definitely going to go around Florida, number 13. And then the 14 is going to go into the Western Gulf. The issue, again, remains, does Tropical Depression 14 clip the Yucatan? And if so, how much? And then the other one for 13 is how close does it come to the north side of the islands of Hispaniola and Cuba? This is meteorologist DT from Weather Risk. I'll talk to you soon.